Thanks. Yeah, it's quite nice to have the guys behind me. Gives me some sort of emotional support.
I understand that you considered starting this project as a documentary, but you kind of went another direction.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very sort of very brief interlude of time in which I considered actually making a documentary, because I did realize, once I discovered species dysphoria, and I didn't know anything about it, but figured out that I didn't want to sort of like, make a commentary about species dysphoria in 2021, but rather kind of the themes and questions that this syndrome, which I, again, knew nothing about before, brought up, raised in me, were what I wanted to look at in a film. So I kind of parked that and decided to go very much into fiction and into this complete world of imagination, and actually then just, have that very much as a sort of like background idea to then jump off and look at the themes that I thought were compelling.
I'm curious to know how you found out about species dysphoria.
Yeah, it's, I think it was just a news piece about a woman who believed that she was a cat. And, I didn't actually think the news piece itself was very interesting, because it was slightly, I felt a bit judgmental, and like it didn't take the character particularly seriously. But I thought, oh, like that is interesting, I didn't really like, and I think that's where I started questioning. I wonder, does she really think that she's a cat, or is this is this inherent to her, or is this something which she's adopted for some reason, is it like a coping mechanism and so on? And I think those initial questions which I asked myself, like what, not necessarily watching that piece, but I guess like thinking about it, are kind of the questions of the film, because I think within the film we have Jacob, who very clearly, I think, does feel with every fragment of his soul that he is a wolf, but I think we also have characters who don't necessarily think that as much, and perhaps they're putting on costumes and inhabiting an animal and a role, and I think that that is what for me makes the film more interesting and more layered than just like a sort of one note study on self-realization.
And as the writer, what made you pick a wolf as a protagonist?
Absolutely nothing logical or worth like any interesting answer. It was just, I just, thought, oh, like a wolf is super interesting. I did speak to a few people that had species dysphoria, and one of them did think he was a wolf. And I think it was like the freshest thing in my mind. And with all the other characters, the same, like it was just instinct.
That's brilliant. So what did you take away from speaking to these people?
I took away the fact that I wasn't going to make a documentary, and that I actually really wanted to just explore, a fictional universe. And that, yeah, that I think it was sort of my discovery of species dysphoria was in fact really related to the things that I wanted to look at, the themes that I wanted to explore.
So by any chance, any of these people you spoke to, I knew you were working on some things, related to the topic. Have they watched the movie? Will they be watching? I would love to. I'm so curious to their reaction.
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, they were like, it was just like a few chats. And again, it was like so kind of detached from the whole, I mean, it was like years ago and very detached from the whole process of actually then writing the film. And like, I really consider them like separate entities, because nothing, none of those conversations in any way kind of like actually affected the film. It was more like when I did think perhaps I might make a documentary about this, like obviously started speaking to people. But again, I think Wolf is not a film about species dysphoria. It is not about a condition in our present day. It is set in a fictional clinic in a world we're not really sure of, and it explores identity questions like pertaining to like different characters. So I think that is a fundamental difference.
Now, like you say, this is completely separate, but there was a little bit of humor. I don't know how you integrated that. And I'm not saying in a humor in a malicious way, but just like there were some funny scenes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think there is, yeah, there is, like, I think there can be humor in like in so many things. And I think I think as long as you aren't, judging or mocking your characters, I mean, and this isn't not just like, the characters in this film, but like in general, unless of course that's, you're doing a parody or so on. But obviously if you're doing a film that's a drama and that you take quite seriously like that, that's not great to then be sort of like step outside and judge them. But I think, the audience like doesn't know what the tone of the film is. And I think, entering it and hopefully they do realize it by the end, but maybe some won't. And I think so you are kind of observing it and sort of finding perhaps things funny because they are funny as well. And, and life can be like, very real and very funny and very tragic all at the same time. But then I hope, or certainly it was my intent to kind of like stay so close to those characters and just kind of like explore them like truthfully, each one in their own way, that actually like that's sort of the things that you find kind of, humorous aren't really that funny in the end.
While watching the film, I got a chance to watch it in a theater room, and I watched it with my best friend who's also a journalist. And at the end, he was like, there were some funny parts where I wanted to laugh, but then I was afraid of laughing because everyone was so quiet. And I was like, oh my gosh, me too. We didn't know, like we felt like if we laughed.
A lot of people.
Yeah. We didn't know.
I heard that I did hear that from like some friends also that saw it like at an industry screening, and they're like, I really wanted to laugh, but I thought like, oh my God, people are going to really judge me for this, which is, yeah, I guess it's, it's interesting. I guess, why do we feel so of course, like, clearly like nobody wants to sort of like judge characters, but then at the same time, like, aren't we all like, if we looked at our own selves and our own lives, like from an outside perspective, would we not find like infinite moments to like laugh at ourselves? And does that take away kind of compassion or like intellectual curiosity or humanity from something? I don't think so. I think, it's just one of the elements of life, and hence of storytelling and filmmaking.
I'm so glad and happy to hear that, because we actually felt like guilty, like, oh my gosh, are we being judgmental, like it's malice, but it's totally not. It's just had those touches, which is nice because it wasn't an uptight film.
Good.
So it kept us as the viewer, for sure.
I'm glad that you laughed. I think it's like, again, and I think, as long as like, but by the end you didn't feel that you just felt that it was a mockery of those characters, and I think that it's absolutely fine to laugh with them and laugh at them at points, and like, what does that mean? Like nothing really. Like it's, it is life. It is at the heart of all tragedy there is like also comedy.
Indeed. So can you talk a little bit about the one scene that you looked forward to finally filming as the writer? That you were visualizing, you're like, I can't wait for this to be in picture.
God, it's difficult because I guess I'm so worried on set, like that things are going to go wrong or this or stress. I'm like a huge like maniac with like punctuality and time and stuff. So actually, like I never really look forward to things until they're kind of like done, or if I'm in the moment and I feel like, okay, like we have it, it's working. So looking forward to, I can't like attribute that ever to any moment of my film career. But I guess what like a scene that, I was like, when I wrote it, like it was something I did want to sort of see come to life, and I'd used it also for castings, was a scene where Lily and George are on the roof and they're just lying down and he talks about his first memory. And I guess, that was for me, like it's one of the few moments of access that we have to the character and of like actual like, wordiness and it was, yeah, it was important to me to, and I was, very, very sort of curious to see that scene come to life, and I think they both did a really beautiful job with it.
One of my favorite scenes was the one where the zookeeper pretty much loses control. I enjoyed it. It was funny. It was also kind of like a joy to watch all these characters, these personalities finally just free, be themselves. How was it like? What was it like directing that scene?
Yeah, that was, I mean, again, like I think that would have been like definitely a scene that like in a kind of parallel universe I would have loved, like been like excited to shoot. But then obviously you have like children, logistics, like, you know, a day to shoot the whole thing, light changing, you know, so all of that slightly clouds the pleasure. But you know, it was fun. It was like quite fun, like inventing like the dance and stuff. And actually, like I think, and obviously I was, you know, with the animals going wild, it was fun, but there was also like a lot of like practical things, like, you know, the trees can't knock over the kids, and like, is it safe, and is it that, and you got the stunt guys, and it's never as poetic as you would hope it to be, you know, like, can't they just run wild? Like, no is the answer always in film. But I guess, yeah, it was like, it was quite joyful. I mean, we got a chance to rehearse the dance scene a lot because, well, first of all, I didn't know how I wanted to shoot it. I didn't know what like kind of blocking. I also didn't know what the dance routine was going to be. So actually rehearsing it was like, on the one hand, very fun, and also like a slightly like humiliating point where you're actually like, I'm a terrible dancer. And like, I was trying to like remember this routine that I had created that morning by watching like exercise videos. And like, I kept on getting it wrong. And like the actress like had got it way before I did. And then they're like correcting me. So that was fun, you know. And all, to be honest, like all the rehearsal part was just like a joy, like because we did so much of it and so much improvisation and so much like, and that was amazing. That was a really special part of making this film, you know, like really just like running wild with it.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time and talking about the film. I'm so glad you approved of how I felt watching the movie, and my colleague journalist also, which I was like, okay, I'm not the only one.
Absolutely, definitely. Look, everyone, I honestly think most people feel that way during the film. So don't worry, you're
Great.
just saying it out loud.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, and
Right.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Bye. Happy holidays.